back with people. Hello, my name's Simon Smith. Joined about a month ago, so not really met most of you. Been at Late Rooms. I joined Late Rooms previously from a contractor point of view, and as a contractor you sort of get exposed to a lot of strange things you don't normally see because you're going from lots of little companies. My background originally was in engineering. I was an engineering apprentice in the 80s, which, if you studied in history, you'll know it was pretty desperate times. I went from engineering to electronics. The reason I went to electronics is because when you build things, it takes far less effort, and you just got to solder them together rather than weld them. From electronics, I stumbled into IT because building things doesn't even need solder anymore, which again makes even less effort, so that was great. I worked as a dev for about 8 years. Then I went to contracting for about 5.5 years, off and on. And this is just about the odd things that I've sort of stumbled along the way, because I've not had any kind of formal training. In fact, my first formal training was last week at Late Rooms, when we did the... teach him something, teach him. When we did a kind of code retro. That was really interesting. So these are just sort of bits and things that I picked up along the way. Picture of the robot there, for no reason in particular, only it's quite bright. Okay, so 6 things that made me a better developer. Okay. Scar tissue. First one is, as a contractor, you see lots and lots of failing projects. A lot of the time, you're called in when the project is already going downhill. So you see all these projects that have started off with the best of intentions and have turned out to be pretty terrible. One thing that's absolutely through the core of this is no one ever sets out to make a failing project. No one says, let's make an IT project that's going to go downhill. But there's a lot of them out there. So the best thing I think you can do is, when you're involved in something like this, is look at what has caused the fail and try to learn from it, because although it's easy to remember all the great projects you've been in and how well they did, I think you probably learn more from all the projects that went horribly wrong. So the points to put up here: don't reinvent the wheel. This is another common thing to see. People say, oh well, we didn't quite like ASP.NVC, so we wrote our own. You see, the problem with doing that is people like Microsoft have got loads of hidden problems that they've got over that you won't see. So try not to reinvent the wheel. A lot of people fixate on one requirement. Yeah, but it's really fast. It's really fast, but we can never extend it. That happens. Try and learn from your mistakes and mistakes of the people around you, because if you only learn from your mistakes, you're just going to have to make lots and lots of mistakes, which isn't great. Okay, sticky tape. Okay. On the side of my monitor, I've got 2 small lines, and they mark the ideal size of a method. I've put them on most places where I am. I have them on home, I have them here. And although they do tell me the ideal size for a method, it's also a great clue for when you go to check in. It just reminds you just about quality and just to keep it in the front of your mind. So I've got these 2 bits of sticky tape, so sticky tape helps me as well. Okay. Great visual cue to keep quality in mind. Also, people tend to ask what they're for, which again reminds you, just when you're checking in, just make sure that your methods aren't bigger than this.
Yeah, my old boss used to have dual monitors, and he used to turn one of them on its side so he could see all functioning writing. So he got more vertical screen size. So that,
that's kind of elegant solution to a problem you shouldn't have.
Yeah, exactly.
Just out of interest, I mean, so you've got this is 60 processor.
Yeah.
What does that equate to roughly in number of lines? For you?
For me, about 10, less than 10. Usually, once you're looking at the code, it depends really on things like font size and stuff like that. So it's quite varied, but it does remind you just to make sure your methods are smaller than this. Paint fumes, okay. Alright, this is another thing, not directly like sniffing paint, I don't think that's very good for you at all. One of the things I do when I'm not doing IT stuff is I airbrush motorcycle tanks as a hobby. The great thing about doing it is I'm not particularly good at it. But the great thing about not being good at something is you have to put 100% of your concentration on it. You see, if I was sort of world class at it, I'd be able to do it and think about other things. But when I'm painting a tank, I can't think about anything else. You see, so it forces you to stop thinking about your IT problems and to do something else. See, so I think this really helps me be a better developer, just because it's making me think about something which isn't development. Okay. It forces you to downtime, and when you come back to a problem, a lot of times it's a lot easier to solve the second time around. Especially if you've been staring at it for 4 hours, you haven't fixed it. Stare at it from another hour, you like to get that same result. So, find something to do that has nothing to do with IT, and preferably not very good at it. So, okay. Well, contentious on this. You get an awful lot of this when you're a contractor. Dick measuring contests are called. What happens is you come into an interview and someone's is a bit fired up because you're a contractor and he wants to show he's better than you. So rather than asking general questions about IT, he'll have one really specific question that he'll ask you. It's almost impossible for anyone to answer without going to Google. And he'll harp on that and harp on that. I don't know what I'm saying he, but it's only ever happened with men for some odd reason. So it's these interview questions that are really designed just to trip you up. Got a couple here. Does anyone know off the top of their head how you specify a value type in a generic in C#? The correct answer is go and look at it in Google, because no one ever has to do it. Okay, there is a way of doing it. That was one. Another great interview I had. They had a programming test for me to do on a laptop that was being projected onto a screen, so I couldn't see it on the laptop screen properly. So I'm looking at the screen while I'm doing this. It's pair programming, and they're asking me general questions at the same time. It was just a general programming. It wasn't like Lex Luthor or anyone like that. But it was a really horrible interview. And I think when you're interviewing people, it's important that the interview looks at your problem solving, how you know the syntax, rather than picking on one thing in particular and just sort of. So I think interviews should be a rounded thing, and giving people good interviews means you get better developers. Okay. Saturday morning TV. Okay, grew up in the 80s. Lots of Saturday morning TV. Okay. Alright. Another pop quiz. How many were in the team with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Depends if you count Splinter.
I do count Splinter because he was a team player.
Do you count the guy in Ski Mask and
Shredder.
Oh, because he's...
Ski Mask, it's a Ski Mask.
Casey, yeah. It's 6 if you have Casey, it's 5. April O'Neil. I don't remember Battle of the Planets.
Yeah.
Vaguely.
vaguely.
Okay. Anyone know how many was in that team? 5. You're just guessing. Monkey. Anyone watch Monkey?
What?
I've seen like one episode, I can't really remember it.
I'll show me age. I've got every single Monkey episode on DVD.
I enjoyed the one I've seen.
Yeah.
Like 4 in the morning
Badly
on
dubbed.
some obscure channel.
Yeah, you never watch them
Yeah.
sober. Thunderbirds. How many main characters are in Thunderbirds?
Do you count the ones who have two his own in the space station while the rest of them
Yeah.
are running around trying to
You mean brains, the IT stereotype? Of course we're counting. Okay. The reason I'm putting this is teams seem to have a natural number. We've got 5 Ninja Turtles. Battle Planets had 5 major characters. Monkey had 4. If you include Chukataka, the monk that didn't do an awful lot. And Thunderbirds had 7, but we seem to naturally have a certain optimum team size. I'm not sure what it is, but certainly if you look in the literature, it tends not to be too big. Okay. Sometimes you can be involved in very large IT teams. And one of the things I think you've got to remember is that if you're going over this natural team size, you've got to say, well, am I just voicing my opinion or am I adding something of value? See, and if you think you're not adding something of value, I'd consider sort of taking a step back. It's another thing you see on things like stag do's. 30 guys got on a stag do, they'll fracture into teams of like 4 or 5 or 6 as they're talking. You see, so it does seem a sort of natural human thing. So I'm not sure what the ideal IT team is, but I'd say it's somewhere between monkey and Thunderbirds. So,
It's how I measure everything.
yeah. Is it a monkey? Is it a Thunderbird? I'll tell you.
Do you think on the team size it's also a case of the makeup of the team and the actual individuals? Do you think that there are actually combinations of individuals that just will not work well as a team?
Having worked in IT for a number of years, yes. But that's more a problem with the individual, by and large. Sometimes you get two people who just want to be pack alphas and they'll just fuss against each other. Sometimes you get people who just don't integrate with the team well and just don't want to get on. As a team member, you sort of got to get them all. But there does seem to be a case of throwing more developers at a job is a great one, making it slower. When you've got like 30 or 40 developers on a team that starts off with 10 or 11 developers, getting that knowledge around is just slowing the team, and you just get to this kind of moribund where nothing's getting out.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it, but there's an economics principle that's basically the same thing.
Are we on the mythical man month?
Might be.
Which is the
Yeah, it's mentioned in the Mythical
Yes.
Man ones, and I think they say it's 5. I think looking at modern kind of distributed techniques, I think we can go more than 5 quite safely, but certainly less than 50 or so.
Because as we add new people, it's the lines of communication. and
Yeah.
Yeah,
communication
so-
between the wards, so
My old boss, he had an army background, and one of the interesting things that he said was, in the army you only ever have a team of 3 people. Only ever deal with 3 people. Corporal only has 3 privates, or Lieutenant only has 3 corporals on the board, because they have their optimum kind of collectiveness with people around them. Yes.
I think that's a great principle.
Yeah, but what's the army's what different,
Yeah.
but you know,
Yeah,
there's,
but there is a problem with an optimum
Yeah.
team size hierarchically like that.
yeah.
So, as I say, it's a problem I'm aware of. I just don't know a solution to it. But it's one of the things you kind of see as you're travelling around. Preparation as well. This isn't just making sure that you do have a screen ready and things. But preparation in projects. One of the projects I saw failed spectacularly. We didn't use ASP.NET MVC, and one of the reasons we didn't, he said, and then halfway through the project, MVC came out. I thought, it's not like Microsoft made a huge secret of this. They didn't go, and here it is. There was almost years of leading where they were saying this product, and there was betas and things like that. So, preparation is really important, knowing what's around the corner. You could be building against something that's about to become end of line. Again, another one is they didn't tell us this. They didn't tell us they wanted the product also to be mobile. But you can sort of guess these things might happen. So I think as a developer, it's part of your job to make sure all that preparation is done. Because people quite often just don't know whether to ask the right questions. A valid question is, will anyone look at this on a tablet? And they'll say, of course not, or, well, maybe they will. So you kind of can take those things into consideration. Also, resist temptations to jump in. When someone gives you a new job, you think, whoa, great! Fire off Visual Studio and dive in there. Usually it's under the guise of proof of concept, but that proof of concept code can be there 5 years later. So before you get going, just make sure you've got everything together. Make sure you've got everything and you've checked it. And also look out for projects or other products that do something like this. So again, you're not reinventing the wheel. I saw someone who re-implemented MVC because they didn't like Microsoft's. That's a big job to take on. So these are the things that can really sort of spike a project from the beginning. So just watch out for them and resist temptation just to jump in. Okay. If you want to learn in a more conventional manner with books and education and stuff, I'd suggest these. Thinking in Java, really good book. Although we're not using Java much here, it's a nice book. Head First Design Patterns. Although it's a great book about design patterns, it's also a great book of how to write a technical book. It's short, it's easy to read, it's cut up into bits that can be read on the train easily. You can start in the middle, you can start at the end. and the clean code, which is pretty much a bible for all these kind of things, which I think is in our library at the moment. So you can check that out.
Got clean code. Do we have the clean code there?
You got both.
Uncle Bob's videos are good if you don't fancy reading.
Yeah.
Expensive. You won't get the entire set.
Expensive, yeah, but worth it.
But I think it's a good book. And that's me stuff I've seen when I'm traveling around charging people more than I'm worth. So, any questions? No? Great. Alright, thank you.
Only Saturday morning, Early Saturday morning cartoons that break that small team size. Oh.
G.I. Joe. Thank you. No.
I did notice there was a couple of skipped on purpose.
The ones that were larger than
Yeah. Some of the kind of X-Men, Avengery kind of ones did.
Yeah.
But even when they had more characters, they tended to have in any episode no more than 3 or 4.
Yeah.
See, although they had a spectrum of lots and lots of characters, He-Man was another one. They had, I think, about 12, 15 main characters because they're selling figures.
Transformers.
Yeah.
They never all go out at the same time. It's always just a group of 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah.
Thundercats, so they crack the whole lot out.
Do they?
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
a whole
all of them have
big
been involved in an episode.
How many Thundercats are there?
battle. About 8.
Okay,
Chitara.
Rhino, Panthro, Tiger, Wily Cat, Wily Kick, Snarf. I'm missing one, so.
You're making
Jagger, if you count Jagger, he only appears occasionally. I'm bringing the voice a lot of Thundercats. I wasn't too old.
But that team thing it does seem to just appear, and I say it's one of the things I've not got a solution for, but it just seems to happen. I'm not sure if you could say, well, this is a separate DB team and this is a separate development team, and whether that works or not, or doesn't. But if you can keep your teams down smaller, it seems to work better.
Does anyone run into the problem with the idea of small teams that oftentimes a business's first response to trying to fix the problem is to put more people in the team?
Yeah. Then you find copy and put it on the desk.
Yeah.
What's his name? Jürgen Apello's got a couple of books on management. As a thing what he talks about that quite a lot.
You go to his course?
No, because they cancelled it.
No.
They cancelled Manchester. But the 5 to 8 is the number that he says he finds is the average.
Certainly, if you look at the sort of all the shiny new Web 2.0 companies like Tumblr, for a long while they had 13 people. So, and their company was worth $1 billion, and they're up against huge companies like I suppose Kodak, who've had up to 1,400 people before they very nearly went under. So I think some team. I think the idea certainly with Tumblr is that they were very focused. They had one product, so you could have one team. You see, where I think when you like this, you've got lots of products going out, and you need lots of teams, you need lots of interactions for teams. Maybe the Tumblr model doesn't work quite so well. I know
it's those interactions that people miss in terms of throwing more people at a project. As if it was the analogy I've used in the past is if it's picking strawberries in a field and it takes one person an hour to pick the field of strawberries, you get 2 people doing it, it's done in half an hour because all they're doing is head down picking strawberries, putting them in a basket. But all of the interactions and the conversations and I need to work on that bit of code and I need it as well and I'm waiting on so and so to complete their bit before I can start mine. Throwing more people at it just magnifies those exponentially, and like we all know, it just ends up grinding to a halt.
Even the two people picking strawberries has the same problem. You still have to decide who's doing what field.
Yes. Yeah.
Give them one basket and
start from opposite ends and one basket in the middle and throw them in.
People try and alleviate some of this in things like Scrum by the Scrum Master, who is the one person who everyone should go to with any questions. There's a few other methodologies where they try to have the one person who is the communications together. To cut down those everyone talking to everybody.
I think, no, you're up against human nature there, because I know when I've had trouble setting up my machine, I turn to Chen, because, hey, his machine works, he knows everything, and he's sitting next to me, which are the 3 criteria, really. But another takeaway there, watch Saturday morning TV and don't sit next to me.
I think another thing I can echo is the paint tank, isn't it? Paint fuel.
Yeah.
I think we should say no lunch on your desk. I find it's really useful. I've never tried to have my lunch on my desk. I always either went there or I even went out after lunch. I found something just refreshing.
It technically is a rule, actually. We've got a lot of new people started, but when we first moved into this office, there was it's no hot meals at your desk, so you can have crisps and a chocolate bar and an apple, but you shouldn't really be sitting at your desk with knife and fork and, a meal on the go.
So what I'm hearing is we should go out for ice and 3 more often. I was up for going today.
I think actually going out with some teammates for lunch is a fantastic idea.
What we did yesterday.
Introduce you guys to moguls. Andy's not a big fan of the rice and 3.
That's what we did yesterday. That's very nice.
I think it's a good point, just getting away from your desk and not staring at a screen for half an hour, doing a crossword or staring out at the hills thinking, go home soon.
It's like the classic thing of you're looking at these going for ages and you ask someone, can you just double check what they assume straight away?
They see you straight away. Yeah, you just kind of got video blind from staring at it.
Actually, that's happened to me so often now. I do have my invisible friend, which I explain the problem to.
With a great
My laptop literally had a cuddly toy.
Oh, he's talking to the puppet.
So sometimes my invisible friend tells me to set fire to stuff.
Tell them that Chen isn't a real person.
I still use Clippy.
Clippy. Clippy. I changed him once somehow with a dog.
Does Clippy start up and see you trying to write an algorithm?
Your code doesn't seem to be this big.
Clippy give you relationship advice.
You're going to die alone.
Every time.
There's a blog, I think it's Win 95 tips and tricks. One of those lines. Where it just has Win 95, message boxes and stuff done in a really weird, awkward style.
Oh yeah. Did anyone see the?
See you putting blood in the CD drive. Do you want help with that?
For April Fool's, Richard Harper did a Clippy skin for all of the prompts and stuff, so you can have Clippy. I installed it for a bit, but then it actually made it slower to develop because you had to wait for it to animate, and I was on a crap machine. So.
You had to wait for Clippy. You didn't actually have to wait for
No,
Clippy.
you have to, because it's the only version.
They did replace it with a puppy or something equally annoying, didn't they?
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Dog in XP.
Setting up bots.
Alright, so I suppose in keeping in the subject line, has anybody else got any lessons that they learned that were not talked about here?
I don't know if they say no because that sounds really bad after 7 years. They'll say no.
It's been great.
I think the one thing for me is just trying something completely alien to you in the dev space. So if you've been in one area like object-oriented programming, C, C#, whatever, just like taking yourself out of your comfort zone and trying something that's really weird and alien, like functional programming, then you get a completely different perspective on it's almost like the philosophy of the thing that you come from, and you just get so much kind of it's like it can only be described as like perspective on problem solving.
Yeah. So I've been C++ and C# all my development life, and did a bunch of Node and JavaScript last year, and it really did give me an appreciation of a bunch of stuff that I'm really particular for. Just going to that space.
I'd say that learning Lisp improved my JavaScript no end.
Probably moved the C# as well.
Yeah.
Probably improved your Lisp as well.
That's got a little bit better, so yeah. Other ones, getting a second opinion. So obviously I've been here for quite a while now, and so people come and say, well, why don't we do this? And I go, well, we tried that 5 years ago. But everything's changed since then, so yeah, that's actually a really good idea, and I didn't really think about it. Because, all the ideas from many years ago which didn't pan out, because everything's changed since then, they're all fresh and new and good. But I don't really come up with them now because I remember, because I've already done that, or tried to, and it didn't work. But lots of them do when something going through.
Sure. Learn from history. No ideas, they'll just take your own ideas and do
And usually someone has always solved your problem.
There was one you mentioned the other day as well, that not just using the shiny new thing, but it's shiny and new.
Yes.
Don't be afraid to use what you know to solve the problem.
Mine.
I was going to say, that's actually got a name. They call it CV-driven development.
Nice.
So they always say about the Gang 4 book, you could always tell where someone was up to when they were reading it by what design pattern you found in their code this week.
Isn't change of responsibility. Mine's been, I think, the thing that has helped me the most in pretty much any job is don't work in the dark. I try to find out everything about everything and where I work. Whether is where everybody sits, to where can I find all this stationery, to how many servers are actually sitting in a cupboard in this room. I will go and run around and look at stuff just to get myself familiarized with things, just look at what is what, where is where, and even again in what I'm working as well. So if I'm going to work on Go, I want to know every single server where Go is installed, how it's installed, and all of this stuff. So you may not always remember everything, but you can always kind of figure out, well, I think I looked at it. There's always somebody who have a question that you perhaps, oh yeah, that monitor you're looking for is in that room. Even though it's nothing to do with it, I think that helped me a lot on many things. In several different jobs. I always know where stuff is, be nosy, curious.
And I suppose it's the stuff you find while you're doing that.
Exactly.
You didn't think to ask a question about. I know it's one of my failings, many failings as a contractor, in that you come in, you've got this hourly rate on your time, so if I said, well, I'm just going to have a couple of hours going to look at the Go servers, a bit like, no, do work. So I've sort of got out of the habit of that, and that's probably a good thing to take away to try and look at the bigger picture.
Look at the bigger picture, because, like I said, nobody works in the dark unless,
Springboard off that one to say that all the other developers don't smoke crack. So when you look at their code and go, what on earth were they thinking when they wrote this? You're looking at it without all the pressures and without all the politics and without all the situation they were in when they were writing it. So if it's written very badly or whatever, there's usually a good reason for it. But you don't know what it was at the time.
I look at it with eyes unclouded by hate.
Mm-hmm.
Or crap.
Or
some of them might have been
or look at some of the work that you did a few years ago. All of a sudden you wonder, were you smoking crack?
We know it was.
That's all committee code is legacy code.
Cool. Anything else anyone would like to add?
The bird in the hand just moved to the bush.
Anna's within my optimum team size. Thank you for that then, and I'll switch to my
Thank you, Simon.
Yeah, thank you.